Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Marcus had always been a methodical man, someone who rarely allowed last-minute changes. For years, his marriage to Sabrina survived precisely because of this predictability. He was the kind of husband who made promises and often kept every one of them. That's why when he assured her he would be by her side at the banquet she had been waiting for, she believed him without hesitation. It was an important night for her career, an event that could open doors, create new contacts, and show everyone how much she had grown professionally. Sabrina spent weeks preparing, working on every detail, the speech, the dress, the makeup. She wanted to be flawless, but above all, she wanted Marcus there, sitting among the guests, looking at her with that silent pride that always made her feel strong. On the morning of the event, while Sabrina finished the last touches, Marcus received a message in his longtime friends group chat. An invitation to play golf, something he loved but rarely got to do anymore due to life's responsibilities. It was a special group, made up of college buddies, guys with whom he shared stories, victories, and stumbles from youth. They were passing through town and wanted to take the chance to relive those moments, like in the old days. Marcus hesitated for a few minutes, staring at his phone while hearing Sabrina moving around in the next room, organizing shoes and accessories. He thought about declining, but soon the idea of a carefree afternoon, away from domestic and professional tensions, seduced him. Besides, he believed he could manage his time. "I'll play a few rounds, have some fun, and then head straight to the banquet," he thought, convinced the plan would work. He didn't feel the need to tell Sabrina at that moment. He figured it would be unnecessary to create tension or raise questions. After all, she was too busy, and he felt confident enough not to see any problem in squeezing in this extra commitment. When he left the house, Sabrina didn't even notice. She was so focused on choosing the bag that matched her dress that she didn't realize Marcus wasn't around anymore. He got in the car, drove to the golf course, and upon arrival, was greeted with hugs, old jokes, and a sense of excitement he hadn't felt in years. The atmosphere was light, familiar. Soon he had a club in hand, listening to his friends tease him about his rusty techniques and teasing them back in the same good humor. Time passed faster than he imagined. Between swings came beers, college stories that seemed even funnier over the years, and even confessions about adult struggles. At one point, he ran into Richard, an old friend he hadn't seen in at least a decade. They stood there for almost an hour, catching up, talking about marriage, kids, work, and nostalgia. As he listened to Richard talk about his recent divorce, Marcus realized how much he missed that kind of casual connection, free from the pressures that often marked his days with Sabrina. When he looked at the clock, he was startled. It was already evening, and Sabrina's event had certainly started. He picked up his phone and saw several messages from her, some asking where he was, others asking him to let her know if he was on his way. He didn't have the courage to respond. He thought that once he got home, he could fix things with some explanation, as he always did during small misunderstandings before. He drove back in silence, his mind racing. He thought of several excuses: traffic, an unexpected meeting, car trouble. He went with a generic version, believing Sabrina would accept it, even if with some irritation. When he walked through the front door, she was already waiting in the living room, still dressed in the elegant outfit she chose for the banquet, perfect makeup, but with teary eyes. There was no need for questions. The silence between them was as heavy as any verbal accusation. Sabrina raised her hands in frustration and simply asked if he had even remembered the commitment. Marcus started with the traffic excuse, then mentioned an unexpected meeting, but the lack of conviction in his words exposed the lie before she could even challenge it. Sabrina exploded, talking about how important that event was to her, how alone she felt in front of everyone while her husband, who promised so much support, didn't even show up. The argument escalated beyond what Marcus expected. Sabrina, overwhelmed by frustration, began listing other situations where she felt neglected. Small things, forgetfulness, emotional absence. Marcus tried to argue, saying everyone makes mistakes and that playing golf was a rare opportunity to catch up with friends, but by then any justification sounded empty. Sabrina accused him of being selfish, of always thinking about himself first and only later about her. Marcus, cornered, threw the accusation back, saying she exaggerated, that he did his best to be a good husband, and shouldn't be judged for a slip-up. Yet, even as he said those words, he realized there was something deeper behind the argument. It wasn't just about the banquet, nor about golf, but about years of built-up resentments, things they never had the courage to say clearly. And now, everything was exploding at once, as if that day were just the trigger for both of them to finally release everything that had been silenced for years. The night ended with Marcus sleeping on the couch and Sabrina locked in the bedroom. The broken promise, which could have been just a minor incident, became the spark of a crisis that would only grow stronger from there, reaching a point of no return. In the morning, Marcus woke up before the alarm. The night on the couch had been uncomfortable, and his body ached as if he'd slept on rocks. But the physical discomfort was small compared to what he felt inside. He looked down the hallway and heard the distant sound of a hair dryer. Sabrina was getting ready for work. He considered going to her, saying something, maybe trying to talk, but he felt drained. The fight from the previous night still echoed in his head, especially the way she looked at him before heading upstairs, as if she no longer recognized him. It was as if he had become just a mistake in her life. He took a shower without rushing, as if he could delay the discomfort of what would come next. When he finished, he passed through the kitchen and saw that coffee was already ready, but there wasn't an extra cup on the table. That small thing hit him like a punch to the gut. For more than 2 decades, Sabrina always left coffee for him. Always. Not that day. That said more than any words. It said that something had truly broken. As he left for work, Sabrina crossed paths with him in the hallway. She wore a light blue dress, discreet but elegant, and carried a large bag over her shoulder. She passed by Marcus with a firm gaze and upright posture. He forced himself to break the silence, asking if she would be coming home late. Sabrina only answered with a sharp, "I don't know," and kept walking without stopping. The door slammed shut with controlled force, as if she was making an effort not to explode again. Marcus stood there for a few seconds, staring at nothing. It was clear that words wouldn't be enough anymore. He spent the day trying to think of some way to soften what he had caused. He remembered gestures he used to make when they wanted to reconnect. Flowers, dinners, notes. But none of these seemed sufficient now. He needed to do something that showed change, a symbolic gesture, something that demonstrated he cared, that he wanted to rebuild the bridge he destroyed. That's when he decided to buy the TV. It wasn't just a gift. To him, it was an attempt to bring back something good between them. He remembered the nights they watched shows together, the Sundays when they laughed at silly movies, the time Sabrina fell asleep on his shoulder during a documentary. He thought that maybe a new TV could be the beginning of something more. An excuse to be in the same room together, without shouting, without accusations. Just the two of them. He got in the car and drove to the store. He walked in determined and chose the most advanced model, with all the modern features a television could have. The purchase was expensive, but he believed it was worth it. He returned home and spent hours setting up the equipment. He measured, installed, configured. When he finished, he took a step back and looked at the giant screen on the living room wall. He felt a certain pride, as if that were a symbol of the effort he was making to save whatever remained between them. Sabrina arrived late in the afternoon. She walked in without saying a word and placed her bag on the kitchen chair. Taking a few steps toward the living room, she stopped suddenly. She looked at the new TV and frowned, trying to understand what she was seeing. Marcus approached slowly and, with a restrained smile, said it was a gift. He said he wanted them to start spending time together again, that he remembered how they used to love watching movies and shows, that he wanted to reclaim that habit. He said he missed that, missed her. Sabrina didn't respond immediately. She looked at the appliance, then at him. She crossed her arms, as if trying to keep control. She asked how much he paid. Marcus hesitated but answered honestly. She shook her head, incredulous, and questioned whether he thought a television would fix their problems. She said it wasn't about distractions, but about presence, listening, respect. Marcus tried to justify, saying it was a way to get closer. Sabrina countered by saying that if he really wanted to get close, he would have been at the banquet. She said everything he had done since then was about himself, even the gesture of reconciliation was more about what he wanted to feel than what she needed. The argument intensified. Sabrina said he didn't consult her opinion before such a big purchase. That, aside from everything else, the investment had been irresponsible. That the gesture, instead of bringing them together, made her feel even lonelier, as if she were in a marriage with someone who tries to put out a fire with perfume. Marcus, feeling attacked, fired back. He said it had been a long time since she did anything but complain, that he was trying, and all he got was disdain. He said he was tired of always being the one who gave in. He said he also had desires, also needed space, moments that were just his. He told her he was tired of always being the one who backed down. Sabrina stayed silent for a few seconds, as if evaluating this new version of Marcus. She said she was surprised by his resistance, that it had been a long time since she saw him so firm. But that wasn't a compliment. She made it clear that this sudden firmness, instead of showing growth, revealed that he always had choices, he just never used that power to stand up for her. Marcus didn't respond. He just sat on the couch, staring at the turned-off TV. The gesture he believed would bring relief had become yet another reason for distance. The air was thick, tense. Sabrina went to the bedroom without another word. That night, Marcus understood that the problem between them was much bigger than a missed event or a poorly chosen gift. It was a build-up of failures, silences, things both had chosen to ignore for years. And now, all of that was being laid bare, piece by piece, like a puzzle made of wounds and frustrations. He stayed there, seated, remote in hand, without the courage to turn on the TV. He knew what was missing wasn't the device. What was missing was far harder to buy. 2 days passed without Marcus and Sabrina exchanging more than short, functional phrases. The house seemed to echo their silence, as if each wall was paying attention to what both refused to say. During meals, the TV, now on, served as distraction. Marcus pretended to pay attention, Sabrina scrolled on her phone. It was like living with a stranger, someone you know deeply and, at the same time, no longer recognize. On Friday night, Sabrina arrived from work later than usual. Marcus was already on the couch, flipping through channels without real interest. She hung her bag, took off her shoes, and instead of going directly to the bedroom, sat on the opposite end of the couch. They stayed in silence for a few seconds. Marcus lowered the TV volume. Sabrina stared at a fixed point ahead, as if carefully choosing every word she would say. He noticed. Something was coming. Without turning her face, she started speaking. She said she didn't want to beat around the bush and that she needed to be honest. Marcus slowly turned toward her. Her tone was calm, but there was something in the way her hands were interlocked, as if her whole body was tense, ready to burst from the inside out. Sabrina then took a deep breath and told him that on the night of the banquet, after waiting for him, she felt neglected in a way that hurt differently. She said that for the first time, she felt completely alone within her own marriage. She said she tried to hide it, smiled for the guests, played her part as hostess, but inside she was hollowed out. And in that state, between conversations, she ended up getting too close to Gregory. Marcus furrowed his brow. The name Gregory was familiar, Sabrina had mentioned him a few times before. He was her boss, an older man, respected, apparently friendly. Nothing about him had ever raised suspicion. Marcus continued listening in silence. Sabrina explained that the two of them left the event early, caught a taxi, and went to Gregory's apartment. There, according to her, something happened she called a moment of weakness. She said it was quick, meant nothing, that she barely managed to look at herself in the mirror afterward, and went home pretending nothing happened. But the guilt grew so much inside her that she couldn't pretend anymore. Marcus listened quietly. His head felt heavy, as if each sentence coming from her mouth was scrambling everything he still tried to hold on to. When she finished, he still stared at the floor. Inside, a mix of anger, disbelief, and disappointment alternated relentlessly. Sabrina didn't cry, didn't justify herself. She only waited for a response. Perhaps a shout, perhaps a demand that she leave the house immediately. Marcus took a while to speak. When he finally did, his voice was lower than usual. He asked if she had thought about him. Sabrina replied that she had. And that's what made her feel even worse. He asked if she had feelings for Gregory. She said no. That it was something driven by frustration, loneliness, a desperate attempt to fill the emptiness growing between them for years. Marcus heard that and swallowed hard. It wasn't just about that night, he realized. It was about everything they had ignored. All the days they pretended everything was fine. All the Sundays they ate lunch together but didn't truly talk. All the nights they slept facing opposite directions without even trying to resolve the accumulated issues. He got up from the couch, walked to the kitchen, turned on the tap, and let the water run while leaning on the sink. His heart pounded rapidly, his breathing shallow. He remembered every sacrifice he made, every time he swallowed words to avoid fights, every effort that now seemed useless. He returned to the living room, met her gaze, and said that it was over. That even though he tried to understand, he couldn't live with what she had done. That betrayal had a weight that went beyond the physical. That trust, once destroyed, wouldn't return the same. Sabrina stayed seated, motionless. She said she was prepared to hear that. That she knew it might be irreversible. But she also said she preferred to be honest and face the consequences rather than keep living as if nothing had happened. Marcus looked at her for a few more seconds, then went upstairs. He grabbed a suitcase from the closet, emptied 2 drawers, and stuffed clothes inside without folding them, as if wanting to leave as quickly as possible. When he came downstairs with the suitcase, Sabrina was still in the same place. He passed by her without saying anything. He opened the door and paused for a moment, hand on the knob. He thought about everything they had built together, how they started so young, how they supported each other through many difficult phases. But he also thought about how they had drifted apart, how they had been living almost like roommates. It was too late. He walked out. Sabrina remained on the couch, staring at the floor. The confession cost what little remained between them, but perhaps, deep down, they both knew the end had been drawn out long ago. That night merely revealed what they both felt but lacked the courage to accept. Marcus moved forward with life like someone dragging invisible chains. He moved into a small apartment a few blocks from where he lived with Sabrina, a temporary place he rented without plans. Life became quieter. The alarm rang at the same time, he wore the same work clothes, drank the same rushed coffee. But there was a weight in everything, in simple tasks, automatic gestures, familiar routes. Her absence was louder than her presence had ever been. Sometimes, when he woke up at night, he turned to the side of the bed where Sabrina used to sleep, only to remember that space was his alone now. And that didn't mean freedom. It meant loss. A month passed since Marcus left home. The divorce process was initiated by him. He sent the documents with proposed terms, not wanting to prolong anything. He wanted to settle things, move on, keep distance. Sabrina signed. She didn't dispute clauses. Didn't ask for anything. Her silence seemed like a continuation of the unfinished conversation on the couch, as if she was also too exhausted to resist. Marcus believed that, with time, everything would settle. That the discomfort would fade. But that didn't happen. One afternoon, while organizing boxes in the new apartment, he found a brown envelope he had set aside. It was correspondence without a clear sender, only his name written by hand. He tore the flap open carelessly and, pulling out the sheet inside, felt his body stiffen. The handwriting was Gregory's. Simple, firm, without embellishments. Marcus read the first lines with heightened attention, trying to guess where it was leading. Gregory said he knew Sabrina's confession had been painful and that, although it might seem absurd, he needed to clarify something. He wrote that on the night of the banquet, Sabrina did leave early, yes, but not with him. He said that although they flirted at times before, they never crossed any boundaries. Said he had never been with her outside of work and that since the following day after the event, she had distanced herself and changed departments. Marcus stopped reading. Went back to the beginning, read it again. His heart started racing. The rest of the letter explained that Gregory was writing at the insistence of a mutual friend, someone who knew the story and thought it was unfair for the separation to happen over a lie. Gregory said he didn't know Sabrina's reasons for inventing it, but he thought it might have been an emotional reaction to something much bigger. A kind of protest, a pain she didn't know how to express any other way. Marcus read the final sentence several times before placing the letter on the table. The sensation was as if the ground had shifted beneath his feet. The betrayal never happened. That thing that made him erupt inside, that pushed him out of his own house, that dissolved decades of shared life, it had never been real. He sat on the couch, motionless, staring at the void. His mind searched for answers, trying to understand why Sabrina would fabricate such a painful story, whether that was actually true, whether Gregory was telling the truth to ease his own conscience. But deep down, Marcus knew. Sabrina created that version to hurt him. To give him back the neglect in a concrete, physical, raw way. Because words no longer worked between them. Because the resentment had gone past its limit. He stood up, grabbed his phone, and searched for her number. It was still saved, as it always had been. He hesitated. Thought about calling, asking for an explanation, telling her he read the letter. But he didn't press the call button. Pride was still stronger. He put the phone in his pocket and walked to the window. Outside, everything continued as always. People coming and going, cars passing by, dogs being taken for walks. Meanwhile, inside him, everything felt out of place. He felt as though he had been deceived twice, once by the lie itself, and again by his own haste to believe it. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He thought about every detail, from the broken promise to the hastily packed suitcase. If she had told the truth, maybe he would have forgiven her. Maybe they would have sought help. Maybe he would have recognized his own mistakes more deeply. But now it was too late. The divorce was official, the furniture divided, mutual friends had already taken sides. And more than anything, he had already learned to wake up without searching for her side of the bed. 2 days later, Marcus went to the mailbox. Among bills and flyers, there was a new envelope. No sender, no identification. He opened it right there on the sidewalk. This time, it was from Sabrina. 3 handwritten pages. A confession. She said she invented the affair because she wanted to hurt him in the quickest way possible. She said she spent years swallowing feelings, pretending everything was fine, holding on to grievances while he gradually disappeared. She wrote that the banquet was the breaking point, the moment she realized she was alone even though she shared her life with someone. She said she didn't take pride in what she did. But she also wrote that, for the first time in a long time, he actually listened to what she said, even if it was through pain. She ended by saying she didn't expect forgiveness. She only wanted him to know that, despite the mistake, everything came from a love that had been neglected. Marcus folded the letter and put it in his pocket. He walked to the corner bar, ordered a beer, and sat with the envelope in his hand. An old friend, who happened to pass by, recognized him and approached. They sat together, talked about trivialities, laughed at an old story. At one point, the friend asked how he was doing. Marcus looked at the envelope, took a deep breath, and replied that he was relearning. Relearning how to understand silence. Relearning how to listen without interpreting everything as an attack. Relearning that in a marriage, absence isn't just physical. It's presence that doesn't look, that doesn't listen, that no longer feels. And sometimes the biggest mistake isn't what the other person does, it's what you choose not to do when you still have the chance. He tucked the envelope into his wallet and asked for the check. When he left the bar, he already knew what he didn't want to carry into the next chapter of his life. Suspicious of your wife or daughter-in-law? Don't go through what we saw in the video. Check the link in the comments and get the ebook with valuable tips and investigator-approved sites to clear your doubts. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.